Welcome everybody to the Swiss Army Man podcast, episode number 16. Coming to you from a bathtub. I am sitting in a bathtub in my house because where I normally do my podcast from is my office, and I have new neighbors moving in, and they're loud as all get out. And they have I'm gonna guess, just by the sound of it, guess 712 dogs. So to avoid all of that noise, and the only other place in my house that has pretty decent lighting is this bathroom that I share with my wife, and no one ever uses the bathtub except for my son, so really it just has cool Spider-Man toys in it, so that's all I have. I am sitting on a towel too, so I'm not being all kinds of dirty, but Spider-Man's going to join me for this episode. Wanted to do this kind of beginning of the year solo podcast. I recorded one last week right after the new year, and I deleted it because I'm an idiot. So that happens in podcasting. I've been doing a lot of stuff media-wise, and I just happened to clear out some stuff, and I had happened to put that video in the folder. So that video has gone into the wherever, so unfortunately, that one we're not getting back. But I'm going to be able to redo it because it's basically a year goal podcast. I'm going to do the things that I kind of want to achieve, things that I think on a personal level and on a business level and all of that kind of stuff that I think can happen this year, and things that can definitely go in my favor. So, or not in my favor, or things that I can actually just kind of put the effort into, because I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize is just effort sometimes goes a long way. So, quick story on that before I kind of really jump into it. My last podcast of 2019 was just that. I reached out to the amazing comedian Brant Tobler to see if he'd be on my podcast, and he said yes. And from that, I've now formed a friendship with Brant, and I'm doing some stuff with him on his social media, which I will definitely talk about in a little bit. But that's something I want to go forward and try to do more, is actually just reach out to people and do some stuff to push myself. And know that, people say no and people say yes, and you just never know until you ask. It's something I've learned again in life to kind of come back around on and figure out that that's something you can, a way of life. You can go about that. Sometimes, who cares if someone says no? Like if I reach out to, and I'll pick somebody, Chris Carrabba. Chris Carrabba is the lead singer of Dashboard Confessional, one of my favorite bands of all time. I literally have a DC tattooed on the back of my arm that I've had since 2002, 18 years. An entire lifetime of a person to become a human, I have had this on the back of my arm. So yeah, 18 years I've had that DC sitting there. And it means something personal to me, but he's one of my favorite singer-songwriters, one of my favorite musicians, and I would love to have a conversation with him. So if I reached out to Chris Carrabba of Dashboard Confessional, and he said no, or didn't respond, guess what? That's kind of what you expect. I expect him to say no. I expect him to not respond at all. But on the off chance he says yes, then guess what? I'm going to have a podcast with Chris Carrabba of Dashboard Confessional where I get to talk to him about music and his life and, things he enjoys and stuff like that. So why not run that risk of putting yourself out there? Unless you're really, really in the business of something, and you're going to say, I don't want to hurt myself in that realm by putting myself out there, then I can understand that. But I'm doing a podcast, so me reaching out to a musician, which has no bearing on my paychecks, there's no negative connotation there. You go into it expecting it to be a no. I'd love to have some WNBA players on here. I'd love to have some more comedians. I've reached out to a couple. And I think that probably is lined up. Some very, very funny people, hopefully. And then, just more and more other podcasters. I'm going to have, hopefully by the end of the year, all of my buddies at the Anomalies on the podcast. I've already had Tyler. I got 3 more to get. So Trashman, Tanner, Marco, I'm coming for you. Those kind of things, just having conversations. I enjoy conversation with people, and I enjoy having people that even aren't like have big following bases or people that aren't like in the public eye. Have conversations with them, because I've met a lot of people online through Twitter and stuff like that I would love to have on my podcast. And those people I've reached out to, and I think and know that I want them on my podcast. So that kind of stuff will happen. So I guess it's one goal. I guess I kind of launched into it without really like prefacing it, but that's one of my goals. One of my goals this year is to have a lot of interviews with a lot of different people in a lot of different genres and a lot of different fields. I have a dream guest list. Brant Tober was the second one on that list. My brother was the first one on that list. I'm going to reach out to some of those people. Some of those people, as you may be asking, I wonder who that could be. Chris Crowell. Easy, I already mentioned him. Gary Vee would be awesome to have on. Pat McAfee. I love Pat McAfee. Anyone who knows me knows I love Pat McAfee and the Pat McAfee Show. Any of those guys on there. Todd McComas, Tone Diggs, Nick Moraldo, Ty Schmidt, Evan Foxy, Viva Lazito, Boston Connor, Bailey McComas, Gump, you name it. Any of those guys would be incredibly awesome to have on and talk to them about how they got to the Pat McAfee Show, their life beforehand, what they see themselves doing, etc. So that would be cool. Any of those guys, I might reach out to them. I don't know. More comedians, like I said, be cool to have any of my favorite comedians on. I already had Brant on, and that was a super great podcast, and it went super well, and really enjoyed that perspective. Maybe some of my favorite artists. There's some people on Instagram that are doing some amazing art that I think would be super fun to have on. Some of those people that are crossovers. I reached out to a Denver comedian who is a very funny comedian, and then also he does art as well. That would be super fun to have him on. There's another guy, same boat, Denver comedian, who is also an artist, and I enjoy his art, so I may reach out to him. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy figuring out why people do the things they do, and it's kind of what fuels me, and it's the creative thing that I get to do. Just by having this podcast could make $0 for the entire existence that it is around, and I'm perfectly fine with that, because this feeds me as a creative person. I enjoy talking to people, and I enjoy creating this content of interviews or some of the artwork that I create. So that would be something that, looking forward into 2020, I hope to do more of. I hope to do more interviews. I hope to connect with more people, talk to more people, and really get an insight on how people live. It's one of those things that I just enjoy it. I enjoy it so much, and it really does fuel me. So, as far as creative stuff, we'll go into that realm. As many of you know, I do posts of Pat McAfee Show stuff and Heartland Radio Show stuff, and I enjoy that. That stuff, again, gives me the creative outlet of doing stuff. I don't get paid by them at all. I know many of you know Pat McAfee has stated on his radio show that at some point he would like to hire me and bring me on. If that happens, that would be awesome in this year. It's a dream job, to be honest with you. It's something that not many people get to do, a dream job that they absolutely 100% are like, wow, this is something that I really, really enjoy. So that would be an awesome thing if that happens. I'm going to just continue to put stuff out and continue to support things that I love, which is, I do love the Pat McAfee Show. I love the Heartland Radio. I love the live shows. So for me, those things bring me enjoyment and bring me happiness. And I want more people to see those. I I grew up really loving music a lot, and I fell into genres where a lot of people were like, that was my band, and then they got big. I witnessed it from Fall Out Boy. I saw them literally play a show in Norfolk for like 50 people. 3 months later, playing that same venue, which holds 3,000 people, sold out with people trying to get tickets. And people were like, that band blew up, and now they're not mine anymore. Well, that's such a weird mindset to like be like, that's not mine anymore. I want things to grow. I want more people to get enjoyment out of it. Which leads to the thing that I am doing now. I'm helping Brant Tobler on social media. I'm helping him with Instagram, YouTube, Twitter for the podcast that he runs, which is called the 31 Podcast. If you don't know what this is, it's an absolutely hilarious umbrella of podcasts underneath the 31 Podcast. 31 Podcast is Brant Tobler has guests on, and he asks them 31 questions. He's had some great guests in the past: Tom Segura, Bert Kreischer, Ari Shafir, Kelsey Cook, Brian Regan, you name it. He's had awesome comedians on there, and other people as well. So on top of that, now he does quick question for you, which is basically like a mini 31. He'll call people. Sometimes he'll have 3 or 4 different people. I was lucky enough to be part of one of these interviews recently. And then you got Dead to Us, which he does with his amazing girlfriend Shire. And they just talk about a little bit of everything, some of the stuff they're watching, sports, because Shire's not super great with the sports knowledge, so it's super fun to listen to that. And a bunch of other things in there. You got Craigslist Chaos, which is basically Brant calling Craigslist ads and seeing what hilarity ensues. It's very, very funny. So you have those 4 under that umbrella. So I'm helping get clips out. I'm helping with the IGTV, helping get YouTube clips up, all that kind of stuff. And it's really been awesome and really like lit a fire under like my creative energy. So I'm really enjoying that. I think that is going to really, really be super fun to do this year in 2020. And if you don't know who Brant is, go follow him. Go follow the 31 Podcast. A lot of cool stuff. He's absolutely hilarious. Just a great comedian and a great person too. So go follow him, check him out, give him a follow. That's at Brant Tobler on, I think, Twitter and Instagram. It's BRANDTTOBLER, and then at 31 Podcast on Twitter and at the 31 Podcast on Instagram. So go follow those. Those are great follows. So on top of doing all of that, I'm looking forward to being very, very present in my personal life. My wife and my kids, more so than ever. Not that I've ever been, I would say, a person who isn't involved, but I want to make sure I'm even more involved. My older kids are getting to the point where they are in some very competitive sports and very competitive other things that require me to be very hands-on and like teach them the things that I know and help them out in the ways I can. Basketball is a big one for our family. My 2 daughters are going to be in 3 different basketball leagues. So basically basketball is going to be my life for the next 2 months, day in, day out, which is cool. I love it. I love watching them play sports. I'm like the biggest, loudest person on the sideline. I'm cheering for them. I'm that dad. Yeah. So, I love watching my kids. Watching them get 2 points in a YMCA game is more important than anything I've ever achieved in my entire life. I feel more pride in that and get more excited than anything I could possibly do on a personal level. For my wife, I think it's really important for me to be intentional this year. This is where the podcast gets a little bit more personal. So, I love my wife to death. I have not always been the best husband in our relationship. Not anything like that you would think of. But I've said stupid things. I've not thought through things before saying things. I've put a lot of the weight on her to make sure this family runs, and that's not always fair. She's incredibly good at budgeting and keeping schedules and keeping us all knowing where we're going and all of that kind of stuff. And I appreciate the hell out of her for that. But at the same time, I need to be a better part of being a partner and less of being another child in this house for her. So I'm working on that this year. I'm going to work on being more intentional, being more doing the things that I need to do to make sure she knows that if she has an off day, she can have an off day. She can shut down and not have to think about things, because that's really the only way you can be a partner in a full-blown partnership, is to pull your weight. And for a long time, she's pulled the majority of the weight, and I need to be more doing that. So I'm being more intentional. I've started therapy back in I guess late April, early May of last year. I've worked through some stuff. I've worked through a lot of my issues and a lot of the issues that I've held in a long time. It's not the first time I've gone to therapy, but it's something that I went at her request. She asked me if I would, and I thought, yeah, it's probably a good thing to do, is to put my thoughts into the world and have somebody tell me if I'm crazy or not. Basically, some of the things I think and some of the things I do are very out there. I think outside the box a lot. But I also have realized a lot of my actions come from things how my childhood went, and how things that have happened to me, and knowing those things helps me control the things that I do going forward, because I can think, okay, that's me reacting in the way that my body is predetermined to act because of these things. But that's not how I have to act. It's not how I have to respond. So being more intentional again this year is something I look forward to definitely doing a lot of. I absolutely love doing these podcasts, so I'm going to put it in here as a mandate that I will put out 52 podcasts this year. So starting with 16, this will be the first podcast of the year, and I will be putting out 52 podcasts this year. That's a week, every week, and that's the minimum. Minimum I will put out is 52 podcasts. I'm definitely aiming to do much more. I want to be better at my Instagram. I want to be better at Twitter. So if you want to follow those are at Swiss Army Man Pod, Pod, and Man, MAN. So at Swiss Army Man Pod on both Instagram and Twitter. Go follow them. I'm going to be a lot better about posting clips and tweeting over there and all that kind of stuff. So go follow those. I'm going to grow this podcast. Even if it's not like top 100, top 1,000, top 10,000 podcasts. Doing this is a fun thing. And if I've learned anything from Pat McAfee Show and from Brant Tobler and any of the other podcasts, Burt Kreischer's podcast, is the community that it creates to have listened to a podcast is something that's very beautiful. And it's cool to have people that are like-minded like you, or even different-minded from you, but you have this common interest of like listening to this podcast. So I want to create a community. I want to create people that are going to have fun and listen to podcasts and enjoy these things and find them as a relief while they're out doing their work and out on a run or running errands or whatever it is on their commute to work. Any of that stuff. I want to be some entertainment and some joy for you guys. So With that being said, I guess I'm going to wrap up. Those are my big ones. I'm going to be more. I'm going to more shoot for the stars this year. I'm going to not worry about getting no's because you're going to get some yeses. I'm going to be more active. I'm going to be more intentional. I'm going to be more available. I'm going to be a better person. And that's going to ultimately lead to a better 2020. So I look forward to having 2020 be the year that blows up in any form or fashion. So hopefully you're along for the ride. Hopefully you enjoy these podcasts. If there's anything you guys want to see on here, let me know. DM me. Ask me questions. I always enjoy answering them and back and forth. So for me and Miles Morales, have a good 2020. We'll see you soon. Bye.